that, let's get into the show proper. And a perfect segue from what we just discussed is EA's replacement E3 2020 press conference called EA Play 2020. The whole thing lasted about 40 minutes. I was kind of surprised at how short it was in general.
They had almost nothing. It was that felt like E3.
That part of it.
EA brought E3 just like every other year.
Well, it was funny on the story on SIFTD for the live stream. Somebody went, like, one of the first comments was, "Oh God, here we go." And I replied, I'm like, "Let's try to stay positive." At the end, I was like, "Oh, he was right. He was totally right." Yeah, it was not. It definitely didn't blow the doors off the barn or anything. But they did make, I don't know, a handful of announcements, and we're going to talk about them. The first thing that they focus on, we're going to go in the order that they actually happened in the event. The first thing they talked about was Apex Legends. How do you feel about them leading their E3 2020 press conference with that?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
I think it was a sign of what was to come with the rest of the
press. Like, actually, when I saw, because I didn't know anything about the conference because I missed it. And then I watched, because I was out, and when I remembered that I missed it, I pulled up the Squadrons thing on my phone to watch it. And then I didn't watch the rest of it till I got back. And when I loaded up and the first thing was Apex Legends, I was like, oh, Squadrons is the only thing I'm going to care about in this. I already know that. Like, here we go. I mean, on the flip side, it's nice that they remembered Apex Legends as a thing, because it feels like they sort of let that.
Cash cow. I mean, I get why they did it.
Cash cow, but like I am always astounded by how anemic their like update and content schedule is for that game in comparison to Fortnite. And I realize Fortnite is a giant juggernaut, can throw money at anything forever, but like you've chosen to compete with this thing in their arena, and like it just doesn't feel like Apex Legends gives people a reason to keep coming back. Even my friends who love Apex Legends and like it better than Fortnite go back to Fortnite because nothing's happening in Apex Legends.
Creep. Yeah, it's too slow. They don't put out new content. Well, they're trying to fix that. Yes. And their big announcement was that they have a new expansion coming out called Lost Treasures. Actually, I think it maybe is out today. It's coming out the 23rd.
That would be today, yes.
Yep. So that just dropped today. Perfect timing, I guess, for us to talk about it. But even, I looked at that DLC drop and I'm like, as somebody who played the game when it first came out, a good bit. I wouldn't say I got like hooked on it or addicted to it, but I played it for like a good week and I enjoyed it. But to your point, I never see anything that'll draw me back. They're like, hey, here's this new gun. It's like, bro, I don't even know what the 80 guns are already in the game. Like, if they're trying to get new people to the game, I feel like they're going about it the wrong way. I feel like they're playing to the base, and they're like, hey, here's this obscure gun that only 5% of our audience knows about. Like,
well, I don't know if they're playing to the base too well either, because my two friends who really like Apex Legends also didn't see the presentation. So when I watched it, they were like, oh, what's the new map? Tell me what the new map is. And I'm like, there's no new map. And they're like, you must be watching it wrong. You don't know what you're looking at because you don't play the game. And I'm like, no, I don't think there's a new map here. I think they added to an existing map, and I don't think there's a new map. And they're like, I don't. And then like later, like when they looked at it, they're like, no, you're right. There's no new map. Like, I told you. Like, I mean, look, adding a new map to a battle royale game is a big deal.
It's huge. Yeah.
Like, that doesn't.
Vincent in his predictions article said that he expected the new map next year. So he was actually, Vincent's been on the money, man. His entirely too many predictions articles for these events have been like scarily accurate. Like, I'm starting to wonder if he's like a mole or something. Seriously, like, he's done a really, really good job. And he predicted that. He said you won't get another map until next year. So,
I mean, some of us are just good at seeing where these things are going, which we will get to later.
Yes, we will. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I put a certain topic in this show just for that. So we'll get to that in a bit.
Otherwise, we're waiting until August.
That's right. That's right. But actually, EA did make some pretty big announcements about Apex Legends. That actually will move the needle a little bit. Cross-play is coming this fall. That's a big deal. Getting everybody on board. That's a big deal. It's also coming to Switch this fall with the cross-platform play. So it's going to be one united community going forward for the game. That will undoubtedly help its prospects. It's helped with every game that's gone cross platform. So that's big stuff. But yeah, content a little slim, I think. Next up, just kind of mentioned offhand by EA, kind of a big deal. EA announced that it will release 7 Switch games in the next 12 months. So we already know a couple of them, obviously. We know, Madden and FIFA, they're going to get like the gimped versions of those. But beyond that, we don't know a whole lot about what EA is bringing. They have all these remasters like Burnout Paradise is coming. So that's a third one. So, but there's still at least like a trio of games that we really have no idea
Mass
what
Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3.
You think that's what it is?
Apex Legends. That's probably
Apex Legends.
That's 4, yeah.
That counts.
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to be anything particularly new. I mean, I think it's just going to be remasters and...
You don't think EA will create something just for Switch?
Not a chance in hell.
I don't think so either. It's a shame. But
EA just has no interest, which is weird because EA usually follows... they follow the money. They want something that'll pay out fast and big. And the software attach rate on the Switch would indicate that if you make something that appeals to the Switch audience, you will get that fast and big payout.
Yeah.
But EA just doesn't seem to think they're capable of it. That's the only conclusion I can possibly draw. I'm sure they blame it on the idea that, Nintendo fans only buy Nintendo games. But, far as we can tell, like from something like Skyrim, that's not true if you position it properly. But
Vincent is saying that they've announced what all 7 games are. Would you share it in chat, Vincent, what the games are? He said Jeff Grubb from Venture Beat. Jeff Grubb's become like the new Jason Schreier. Isn't it funny? Like literally like the day Jason Schreier goes to Bloomberg, he kind of steps in and starts doing the stuff that Jason's been doing. So here it is from Vincent. Lost in Random, FIFA Legacy, Burnout, Apex Legend, Velen Studios game, a remaster of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit from 2010, and a port of Battle for Neighborville, which is the Plants vs. Zombies third-person competitive shooter.
So those last 3, he says those last 3 are Grubb's reporting. The first 4 are confirmed.
Yeah, so there you go. Not exactly exciting, but it's better than nothing. I mean, EA is playing it about as safe as possible on Switch.
I mean, considering they went through that period where they're just like, we aren't doing anything for the Switch anyway. Like it's progress, I guess. Like at least, EA, at some point EA had to acknowledge that like you can't ignore the
platform
Switch.
That huge.
Like,
it's stupid to ignore.
It is. But I also like EA, something must have changed internally at EA's in terms of strategy, because like that plus like putting all their stuff on Steam all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's right. That's huge.
Like, yeah, it is. Like I actually got a couple things from that because like I don't play with Origin. I mean, I have Origin periodically.
The last time I opened it.
No. Like, well, the only reason I had Origin at all was because of Old Republic, and Old Republic doesn't need you to open Origin to play Old Republic, so I haven't opened that in years. Yeah. But like, so I got I think I got actually Hot Pursuit on that because like I wanted to have it on PC, and I prefer to have it on Steam, but like. I don't know where that came from, and they've done a big rollout, like a periodic rollout. Like, here's more. Cool. Like,
I think everyone's just starting to get what Pactor honestly has been talking about for a really long time, and that's that. Like, everything should just be platform agnostic because the more
just like let me give you money the way I want to give you money.
Yeah, it's like the more platforms your product is on, the more money you can make. It's just like us getting our podcast distributed out to all these new podcast services. That could make a difference. More people are going to listen to the show, and then they're going to go to our Patreon. That it's all about distribution, really. So I don't know. I think EA, at least in this section, it's good. It's paying some lip service to Switch, but it still needs to kind of put up or shut up. Like at least like really work on the sports games for Switch, so they're not just. I mean, they're pretty much trash. So I don't know. It's an olive branch, I think, to Switch owners, but I don't think it's much more than that. Next up, EA started talking about its indie imprint called EA Originals, and it showed a trio of basically indie games that EA is going to publish here in the near future. Now, one of these, or actually almost all of them, were known quantities before. We just hadn't really gotten looks at them. The first game is the next game from Joseph Fares, the F the Oscars guy. It's called It Takes Two. They didn't show much of this. In fact, the debut trailer for this was him. Like, are you sick of Joseph Fares yet, Matt?
I don't know if I'd say sick of him. He never made an impression on me beyond like I probably don't want to hang out with him. I
just feel like he's just reached a total saturation point. Like the first, and I
don't think his saturation point was very high to begin with. It was. Like I realize EA doesn't have a lot of personality internally, but like
it doesn't.
They're like leaning on him like. I don't know, like he's
a luminary or something.
Yeah, and I just, like, cool, you said fuck the Oscars on an award show. Like, I don't, and also like
that's all it took apparently.
Like, I like Brothers a lot, but like A Way Out was just snooze fest. Like,
mediocre. Yeah.
This looks better, but like it's just there's a lot of like ego on display from this dude that I don't know if is particularly warranted.
Yep. So they showed his new game, kind of like after we cut out all the footage of him being demonstrative and acting crazy. I think there was 40 seconds, and I'm sure Mitch is figuring that out right now. That there's only 40 seconds for this game.
Oh, we already finished it. I gotta play it again.
Sure you did. Roll it again, man. So there was like 40 seconds of footage, and it wasn't even really the game. Like there was a couple short clips of the game. The rest was like concept art. Other than it being a cooperative game, which seems to be his thing.
Yeah, that seems to definitely, like, he is on a one-man quest to bring back couch co-op, which I can support. I just,
it's an admirable cause. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just don't like, I don't know. Like, we've talked about Way Out before, and I just, like, I can't imagine a way to make a game less interesting to me in terms of premise and presentation. Hopefully this one's better. Already, like, even the little bit we saw is already more appealing to me. So
I'd agree with that for sure. The next game that they discussed was called Lost in Random. This game was announced at E3 last year with just like a press release and some screens and a logo. And this was the first look that we actually got at it. It looks insane. I guess what do you think of the art style?
I mean, I like it. Yeah, it's odd. I don't know what to think of it quite yet.
It's like a cheap man's version of like Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's got like a little Nightmares flavor to it a little bit, which is fine. Like, I don't, it's better than doing more cell shading, but like, also a little bit of, what was that graffiti game?
Which one?
Last year?
Get Up. Mark Echo's
No, the magical one where the bullies.
Oh, the one that came out like last year.
Yeah, on PlayStation. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
That's the main thing I thought of.
Concrete Genie.
Yeah,
that's right. Concrete Genie. Yep. I mean, not as neon, but it had that sort of like grimy Oliver Twist look to it.
And I will give it props because this is one of the few games that will use inanimate objects from board games as a playable character. So it can get in that genre with No One Can Stop Mr. Domino.
Yeah, so it's not a crowded field.
Very weird to have a die as one of the characters in the game. Obviously, the die ties into the concept of the game and the gameplay and all that kind of stuff.
Also, thank you for using the correct singular of dice.
Right.
Which I'm sure no one will do in the previews for the next year and call him a dice. And it's going to drive me crazy. But
I do what I can, Kyle.
Yeah.
But it does look interesting. We've learned anything about these EA originals, though, it's like you really never know when they're going to come out. Unraveled took a long time to come out after we saw that at E3 when it was debuted.
But then Unraveled 2 came out like very fast.
Yeah, it was really odd. It's like, oh, we got it now. We can just whip out another game in like 3 months or whatever. Pretty bizarre. And then the last thing that EA showed under the originals imprint was Rocket Arena, another game that was announced a long time ago. That was a game that was being basically published by its developer. EA picked it up to publish it. And I'll say this, that game looks pretty damn good. Like, it's a rocket launcher only hero-based shooter. So you only can fire rockets. And I think that's a pretty cool concept. Rocket launchers.
There were so many mods of that, like back in the old Quake and Unreal days.
Yeah, and I love those mods. Yeah. I love playing matches.
I'm pretty sure one of them was actually called Rocket Arena.
It may have been, actually. Actually, I think you're right. I think you may be right. But maybe they didn't trademark it. So
I'm pretty sure nobody trademarked the mod thing they made for Quake 3.
Well, there also was a mode in Halo 3 you could do that too, because my friends loved that. We loved just playing with rockets. That was like so much fun.
Yeah, in Halo 3 though, it was never a permanent thing on the playlist though. I remember it would show up.
It was a custom setting you had to do.
Yeah, it would show up every once in a while, and you could play it for like a couple days, and then it would go away.
Yeah, we used to do that with we didn't do competitive online, but we did like our own private games, and we would made up a mode that was basically teams of 2. Everyone got a warthog with rail guns, and then everyone only had rocket launchers if you got blown off your warthog. So it just became an explosive nonsense match, and it was great. So this is a really fun way to play a shooter. Like when I saw this, I'm like, that's weird that no one's done this really officially
really
before. And maybe they have, and I just haven't. But like, it's a good idea, I think, for a little indie sort of like fun little game. Like, I'm into it. I probably won't play it, but I'm into it.
JM Rain, thank you for all the gift subs that you've given out. It's awesome. Thank you for subscribing with Twitch Prime. He's shared 50 emotes already. Axel F, thank you for Twitch Prime. I think I saw McWomble earlier. Subscribe with Twitch Prime. Thank you guys for all that stuff. What next? Matt. Matt, after watching the presentation for the next game that we're about to talk about, I said to myself, Matt may never have to buy another video game. And I wasn't like, that wasn't even hyperbole or me exaggerating. Like, literally, I think this may be a game that you can play for the rest of your life. And that game is Star Wars Squadrons. This game, to me, has ended up being much more than I thought it was going to be as far as content and longevity. What do you think? I'm just going to let you have the floor, Matt. This is all you, brother.
I mean, I think you're right. Like, I'm a little surprised it's $40.
Yeah.
Because it does seem to have a full-fledged campaign in it.
Yeah.
My guess is it's priced the way it is because they just aren't sure if people will go for this. Like flight sims, and this is, there's not a flight simulator, so exactly, but like it's a Wing Commander X-Wing style game that like just isn't made outside of niche PC gamer circles really anymore. So they are testing the water here with something that they don't know what the market might be for it. I suggest that the market is very strong for it, especially since there's such a drought of Star Wars games. It would not necessarily be the only game I'd ever play again because there are no lightsabers in it.
Okay.
But
fair enough.
But this is an element of Star Wars that has been neglected for 22 years. I mean, you had the Rogue Squadron games, but those are arcade shooters and not what this is. There's not just in the sense that this is like a in the cockpit, manage the power levels, like do the mission thing, but because it's got 5-on-5 multiplayer. It has kind of that squadron feel. It's got like all the old modes that people loved from not just like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, which was the multiplayer focused version of that game back in the day. But like they're kind of finally realizing a couple of the game modes from Battlefront, even the old Battlefront that the space battles had, whereas I used to say like, if you put some effort into this, like it could be really cool.
I remember you got really into it. Yeah. Yeah.
And the multi-stage battles in this look like they're really taking that and bringing it to the next level and making it feel like it has more of a progression and giving it a little strategy. And I like that a lot. So it's everything here is very encouraging. Obviously, we don't know whether it's really good or not until we get our hands on it and play it. Yeah. I hope it's not too much like the Starfighter stuff in Battlefront 2, because while that was improved, it was not on the level of what an X-Wing TIE Fighter thing would need to be. You'd need to have it much less auto-targety. It would have to be a little more free form. But I'm into it. The VR, being able to play it all in VR is fantastic, especially since it's supporting all headsets on all platforms, it looks like, including PSVR.
Will you play it in VR the first time you play it?
Probably not the first time, but I'll play it in VR eventually. Also, like, if there's a big notable visual improvement on PSVR 2, that could be enough to get me to buy PSVR 2.
Yeah, I think a lot of people may feel that way, actually.
Because I really, really liked the VR mission they put in Battlefront 1 as the Rogue One marketing tie-in. Yeah. And I'm sure this is in part based on and largely inspired by the success of that. Not because it was successful in the sense of, like, it was free. That's not what. But I think anyone that can tolerate VR for any length of time, if you put that headset on and played that mission and you love Star Wars, you're like, yes, we need to do more of this. Like, I could totally see Squadrons coming about purely because some executive played that Rogue One mission and I was like, why don't we have a full game of this?
Yeah.
Which is a very natural question to ask. The question I kept asking playing it. So yeah, I'm very excited about this one. We've got some good talent on the campaign. The campaign looks more robust than I thought it would. Me
too. I'm surprised. So you can play as do you choose between two pilots, or do you alternate between two throughout the campaign?
I was having this discussion.
I couldn't figure it out.
I was having this discussion with my friend, who's also very excited, and she couldn't figure it. She thought we're gonna, because she doesn't want to play the Empire. She only wants to play the Rebels. And I'm not a fan of playing the totalitarian space fascists, but I do love flying TIE fighters.
Right,
so
exactly.
I do want to play the Empire. Like the way the VO in the presentation made it sound like the campaign interleaves the two, but the fact that they showed the screen where you pick between the two pilots would indicate to me that you
pick
at
one.
The very least, you're choosing where to start, I guess.
Yeah, or maybe you play through from different perspectives, one from one side, one from the other.
That would be my guess. Like you can play the Rebel side of things, and then because it does take place immediately after Return of the Jedi. So it is sort of a wild space situation. We don't really know exactly what happened in terms of like space combat after that in the new Disney canon. So it will be interesting that way. Apparently, General Grievous is still around somehow. Like there was some.
And he says he's still a threat. So I'm guessing he's the main antagonist. That'd be my guess.
Something like that. So that's cool. There's some,
but no lightsabers. So
no. Well, I mean,
which is weird.
He has his ship. I mean, who knows? There might be a moment where he jumps out of the ship, lands on your ship, and starts cutting it apart or something.
It would be cool if there were some kind of like finishers in the game where if you've already downed the opponent, you could fly up and then like quickly board the ship and maybe just slice like the nose cone off of it or something. Like they could do something cool with that.
Well, nobody's a Jedi in this, so that's
right. Yeah, I guess the best thing you could do is just like shoot them through like the cockpit or whatever.
Yeah, this little John Woo Star Wars there, but it's. I mean,
they'll try anything at this point, Matt.
The old Jedi Starfighter stuff had something sort of like that, with the ability to finish people up with force powers from the cockpit. Yep. But I do see kind of the pedigree of X-Wing and TIE Fighter in this, but it's interesting to watch this footage because the old X-Wing and TIE Fighter games just didn't have anything as impactful as all the stuff that's happening in this. Because it was they were more sterile games. The tech wasn't there, and also like the idea of Star Wars being quite such a slam bang, huge. You couldn't do battles like that, not just in games, but in movies. Return of the Jedi.
You couldn't even do it in films.
The Battle of Endor and Return of the Jedi, I'm pretty sure, is still the most heavily composited film shots in the history of the medium. Especially because CG came along 10 years later, and you just didn't need to do that anymore. But so the way you see kind of like the footage in this of like the TIE bombers going over and just slamming those bombs into the Corvettes. And it's just like having a game that plays like TIE Fighter and X-Wing, but has that modern presentation is going to be crazy. Like my mind still can't fully wrap around it. And that's pretty cool.
So there are 8 ships. Any glaring omissions, Matt? Anything that you're like, oh, why doesn't it have this?
What were the 8 ships? We had the 4 Rebel Starfighters.
There's a TIE Reaper, the TIE Bomber, the Y-Wing, the A-Wing, obviously the X-Wing.
I imagine there'll be a B-Wing. There's the U-Wing, which is the support ship, the equivalent of the TIE Reaper. There's a TIE Interceptor, obviously. Right. Yep. So probably the main omission, and it doesn't make canon sense to have it here, but it's a reference to the old games, is I'd love to see the TIE Defender. Which was the ship in the TIE Fighter expansion that was Thrawn's pet project. It was basically cheating. And actually it came back. It was obviously out of canon when the Disney takeover happened, but it came back in the CG series Rebels because Dave Filoni is a giant nerd and he brings stuff back from old Star Wars all the time. So Thrawn in that series is working on the TIE Defender project as an alternative to the Death Star. And the TIE Defender in the old games was it had the firepower of a B-Wing, the speed of an A-Wing, the shields of a Y-Wing, and the maneuverability of an X-Wing. I can cheating.
Understand why it would.
Now, it doesn't have to be that powerful. And it would be cool to see them come up with a new Rebel fight. I mean, I could see this being DLC or an update later, the secret weapons expansion or something. And you bring in a TIE Defender and some kind of that would actually be a really good opportunity to bring in the E-Wing, which was an expanded universe only fighter for the Rebels. I guess they were the old New Republic by then. In the old comics, the Dark Empire comics, the E-Wing showed up, or the K-Wing, or things like that. You could do some really cool stuff, kind of expanding out and bringing some old fan favorite ships back into the fold. But I think what they've got right now is about what it needs to be.
Well, the other thing too is that there are 50 components that you can use to buff your ship.
A lot of customization.
Yeah.
So actually, now that we kind of talk about, so we've got X-Wing, Y-Wing, A-Wing, U-Wing, and then we've got TIE Fighter, TIE Interceptor, TIE Bomber, TIE Reaper. So that's your 8 ships.
Makes sense. 4 on each side.
Yeah.
I think
I'm very interested. I'm very interested in the balance on this game because so it's a 5-on-5 squadron thing. So I think the dogfighting that starts a match is going to be 5-on-5 in the middle of the battle, and the second phase is more of a fleet battle. So there'll be AI ships flying around. You'll be less directly engaged. The thing I'm interested in is like in the old games, it took about 2 TIE fighters to match an X-Wing, because the TIE fighters don't have shields.
Right.
So I'm curious how they're going to balance 5-on-5 and how they'll make you want to play as a TIE fighter ever.
Yeah.
Certainly
based, because dogfighting multiplayer and dogfighting games typically is awful. It just turns into this like just chase, loop-de-loop. Flying like I remember Star Fox 64. Do you remember playing the multiplayer in that?
Oh, yeah.
It was absurd. But having 5-on-5 will guarantee that type of stuff isn't going to happen. So I'm glad that they're making a team base. They may eventually release some kind of a free-for-all mode. I'm sure some people will like that. But
there will
not
be,
me.
sure. I'm also curious about, so the Reaper and the U-Wing are the support ships, the big, slower, more heavily armored ships. And I'm very interested to see how that works out. And actually, now that I think about it, since the B-Wing's not in this, the B-Wing would be the perfect companion to the TIE Defender if they did that as an expansion later. No. But I'm interested to see how sort of support ships work in this, because that's a new wrinkle. And I'm assuming that like that will kind of smart support ship use will kind of be what gives like a TIE fighter a chance against an
X-Wing. And if anyone wants to play support, because that often becomes the problem in a lot of games, is finding the person who's willing to be the support character.
Well, that's the trick, is they're going to have to make playing the U-Wing and the Reaper really fun. Like you have to make, or at least make you feel like
support is not fun. I think that's why most people don't like it. But if other people,
but if you're a big, they're gunships basically. U-Wing and the Reaper are gunships. So if you can make them fun and formidable, like you might have something, especially and especially as long as you're rewarding someone properly in the post match with XP or whatever. So that like
that does make a big difference for sure.
If it makes it so like playing as a support ship is a good way to progress, like that'll probably help some of it.
That's a good point.
I mean, look, I desperately want to play as a TIE Interceptor and an A-Wing, which are my 2 favorite starships in the entire series. But like, will I play a U-Wing and a Reaper if I get some cool stuff out of it? Absolutely.
Sure. Then the final points about the game, it is, and this I want to hear how you feel about this, Matt. It is not a game as a service. And I think a lot of people just instinctively, when they hear that, they celebrate. They're like, it's not a game as a service, because it's kind of a dirty word at this point. But I'm wondering if maybe you would hope that this game would be a game as a service so that it actually continues longer.
No, I think I prefer it the way it is, just because the game as a service does not guarantee longevity.
It's true.
It also makes it so like, like I think like we saw with Anthem, there's kind of if it doesn't go well out of the gate, and I'm not saying this won't go well out of the gate, I think this game will do very well. Yeah. But like if it doesn't go well out of the gate, you can kind of end up with this sort of limbo drought wasteland that like there's just nothing to do, and like
where they're like, we need to overhaul it, but it's going to take 18 months.
Yeah,
and you end up getting
like so better this way, and also this way the upgrades and the things you unlock can be more performance driven and not just like because if you do game as a service, they're going to make it all cosmetic, so nobody complains about it. It's like this way, at least like all the things you're unlocking are valid, are useful, and upgrade parts and things that make the gameplay work better for you and that reward you for long-term or better play, which I think is how unlock should work. That's kind of how the Call of Duty model used to be before the game as a service thing horned in on it.
Yeah.
And also because there's no game as a service element, and there's not an alternate way to pay real money to unlock this stuff. Maybe the way to unlock this stuff won't take for fucking ever.
That's a good point.
Because that was a big thing with Battlefront 2, was not just that it was a game as a service, but the grind to open any of the stuff that was real money bought.
That's why I give up on games as a service. I get tired of it, man. I get tired of having to kill like 5,000 dudes to get a new gun. Like it's not for me.
That's why and most of the things don't do that anymore. I guess why the stuff that's sold is cosmetic to make you look cool, and the stuff that's really gameplay oriented unlocks normally in the game. But this way, EA is not very good at striking that balance in the past. So, and also I would very strongly suspect that considering Bob Iger, the head of Disney, had to call EA during the Battlefront 2 debacle and tell them stop fucking with our brand. would not surprise me if Lucasfilm basically made a rule with them, like no more of that in the Star Wars games.
Yep.
So
it's coming out October 2nd.
Yeah.
So it's not far away.
Another one of my predictions, by the way, that they had another Star Wars game we didn't know about.
You absolutely nailed it. Yep. You
said
that.
They need that Star Wars content out there.
Yeah, you were absolutely right.
That was one of my New Year's predictions, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You predicted that a long time ago. Pretty impressive. Then this is the point of EA's presentation where it started to fall apart for me. But I believe,
and Squadrons has crossplay too, right?
Yes, I believe it does. Yes.
That's very good too. I'm happy about that because it means that like I will probably get that on PS4 so that I can play it VR later on PS5.
Yep.
But I know a lot of people that want to get it on PC or Xbox.
Yep. And you're going to need people to play with. So
yeah, and now I don't have to worry about who I can play with. So yeah, crossplay is there's no downside to it.
Yep.
So I'm glad EA is embracing that.
Yeah. And so this is the part of most press conferences where you get the really good stuff. This is the last 10 minutes of a press conference.
One more thing.
Yeah, exactly. This, you're supposed to build up and then you have this big finale. So to me, this is where EA's press conference just went right down the crapper. Next, it showed, so FIFA, I don't know if you guys are aware. FIFA is one of the best-selling games in the world, year in and year out. It is one of the only franchises in the world that can compete with Call of Duty in that way, in that every year, at least 20 million sold, guaranteed. And so it's one of EA's biggest franchises. Ultimate Team drives tons of revenue for EA. So what does EA do with that game to show off the next-gen version of it for the very first time ever? They lump it in with the trailer for Madden, which we've already seen, and we had already gotten 2 trailers for. Why? What? I don't understand what they're doing here. What would rationale could EA have for doing that, Matt?
I don't know. I got nothing. I don't know.
Are you trying to get them hooked in with Madden and then use it as a Trojan horse to sell them on FIFA? Is it bait and switch? Or
my only guess would be that
more popular than Madden.
My only guess would be that they may. I assume they do very close readings of viewer engagement during these things, and my guess would be that considering the core gaming audience's tastes, engagement drops during the sports section.
Maybe.
So my guess would be they're just trying to get all the 2 major sports things kind of out in one burst, so people don't go away.
I understand that for the live presentation, but then if you're going to go with that strategy, at the end you need to put out the trailer just separately for FIFA. There's no trailer just for FIFA 21.
Especially since I don't care about sports games, but I'll watch a FIFA trailer. FIFA's a good indicator, much like NBA 2K. FIFA's a good indicator of what we're dealing with next gen wise, what the animations look like. Some of that stuff's really impressive. I don't follow soccer, but I do think it's fun to watch. And I like to see the celebrations and all I like watching the FIFA stuff. I don't like it when they do a 20-minute deep dive documentary thing, but I'm glad to see it every time just because and apparently the story modes. I've been tempted to pick it up a couple times the last couple of years. So people that have played it said the story mode's pretty good,
surprisingly good.
Yeah, which makes me wonder what takes Madden so long to get its act together. But what are you gonna do?
Do you think maybe because they're using the same engine, they're using that locomotive engine, that they just want to kind of self-promote them both within the same thing to say, hey, next gen, our engine looks great on both of our sports games because they're great. That's the only thing
it's possible. I just think it's a dumb decision.
Oh,
FIFA
I agree.
is gigantic.
I think it's stupid.
They should have given FIFA a spotlight, in my opinion.
It might also just have been kind of as dumb as football fans don't care about soccer and soccer fans don't care about football.
So let's make them watch something.
Let's just do them both at the same time so no one cares.
Not Cirque in chat said, to be fair, I'm glad the sports section was way shorter this year. So to your point, Matt, there are some people who are just I don't really care about sports games at all. I'm just glad that they're over with quickly. So.
Yeah, I don't care about the sports games as themselves, but I'm as we transition into a new generation, I'm always interested in what the sports games look like. That would, I guess, would be
they're a good barometer to see what's coming. And so anyway, that segued into what was supposed to be EA's big PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X. Here's our stuff. Check it out. And then
Not a lot ready to show.
What the hell? Okay, so you guys have probably been looking at the lower third for this topic all this time and being like, what the hell was Shane thinking with that lower third? This is what it's talking about.
What does it say?
It's just basically like
late start.
Late start. Like EA is not ready for next gen. They obviously are not prepared. They're not ready to move. They don't have any new games coming to next gen that are going to be there around the launch window. I can't believe that all we can get for Dragon Age 4 at this point is like 3 like stills.
I can. I've been saying for a long time, Dragon Age 4 is years and years away. Like 2023, like we'll be playing Dragon Age 4 the same year we're playing Starfield.
Wow.
Let me put it that way.
So then they really do have nothing.
Pretty much.
They have nothing.
I mean, I'm sure they got some Star Wars stuff in the pipeline. I'm sure, obviously, their yearly stuff is there.
They showed a character model from Battlefield.
Yeah.
Like, dude, DICE. It's DICE's engine. So what this tells me is maybe Frostbite isn't going over so good right now on the next gen platforms. I don't know.
Or it didn't go over so well on the current gen platforms.
Well,
I mean,
exactly.
It really might be time to, certainly it's smart that the sports games dropped it and got their own thing. It's time to let that go. Like, just make your stuff, what's the most successful, thing that like they've made recently from EA is, probably Fallen Order, which was Unreal, which was because Vince pretty much sounds like they basically said, we're not using your stupid
Frostbite
engine for this.
Yeah.
We're going to make it with Unreal. Just use Unreal 5. Just like stop trying to do the internal engine. It doesn't work. Like, Frostbite was built to be a first person shooter engine, and that's pretty much all it does well.
Yeah, and even that,
it always maybe this is
my. It works well for multiplayer shooters.
Yeah, and like maybe this is my weird perspective on like just having used the Frostbite stuff too much, but like when you play a Frostbite engine game, doesn't it kind of feel like you're playing like on thin ice?
Yes,
like it feels like everything's
feels like the whole thing could just crumble apart at any minute. Yes, I agree with you 1,000%. Yes, I agree. And the campaigns built on Frostbite have all been abysmal. Some of that is just that the campaigns aren't good. But
and then compared to like Titanfall 2, which is one of the greatest shooter campaigns ever made, I would say. I would agree with that. Yeah. And that's the Source engine.
Yeah.
That's Half-Life 2's engine. Like,
yeah.
It's not.
So, anyway, they basically showed a couple stills, like moving stills from Dragon Age 4. They showed a character model from Battlefield, and they showed some vehicle renderings for presumably the next Need for Speed.
You made me think of like, because the other Dragon Age thing we saw was at the Game Awards, and that was also like a moving still image.
It was. It was. Yeah, we have 2 of those now. And
maybe Dragon Age 4 is just like a tapestry.
That's all it is. It's a text adventure. It's a point and click. They're saving that revelation.
If I start west of a White House, we gotta have some words. EA.
Well, I'll say this: like that whole next gen presentation was the worst next gen presentation I've seen so far. So we haven't seen a ton of them yet. We've only
very on brand.
Yeah, we've only seen a few, but that was the worst one that I've seen. I have no confidence right now that EA is primed and ready for Generation 9. Also,
but like, isn't that kind of like just par for the course? Like, I even remember back in the old E3 days when we were doing live coverage for G4, like some of the higher ups would sometimes come to me and be like, is EA going to be know this year? Or are we just going to be like,
even they knew,
stuck with like broadcasting this for an hour? And I'm like, man, I don't know. Like, you never know. You never know with that.
No, it's probably
not.
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention too about FIFA is that the PC version of FIFA, which should be the best looking version or near the best looking version, is not the same version as the Xbox Series X and PS5 versions. They're basing the PC version off of the PS4 and Xbox One build.
Because those have more full featured, I bet.
Right. Yeah. I'm guessing they will be.
EA does tend to do that thing where the first entry of those franchises on the next gen system is some kind of like half.
They have half the modes typically. They generally don't have any new features as far as like gameplay improvements and things like that. They basically are like, there's Madden, it works, and all the teams are in there, all the players are in there, have fun. That's the way it's always been. So Yes, not out of character for EA to not be on the cusp of, the next generation that's coming, but this is also particularly bad, even by EA's standards. If I were a stockholder right now, I would be feeling a little nervous because that's what you're buying stocks for. You're not buying stocks for, Squadrons. You're buying stock for what is EA going to do in 3 years, and right now it's not looking very good.
The stuff that doesn't rely on a license they may not have forever.
Exactly. Yep. And then they did close out the show. I'm surprised that they closed it out with this because there's a reason why it's a big deal. So they closed the show with Skate 4, an announcement of Skate 4. We don't know it's called Skate 4 yet. It could be just Skate, whatever subtitle. But another Skate is coming.
I thought it was funny that one of the biggest responses to this I saw online was people worried about it being like some kind of mobile thing.
Yeah.
Or something. And I just thought it was really funny that the reaction to, Skate people have wanted, Skate fans have wanted a new Skate for forever. And I mean, they even say in this, like, your internet comments made this happen.
Yeah.
And the fan base for this had the exact same reaction that I had to Squadrons leaking. Was like, this better not be stupid.
Yeah.
When that's the first response people have to both your skateboarding game and your Star Wars Starfighter game, EA, you got an image problem.
Yep.
Just saying.
Absolutely. So I've, as a former skater, I guess I would still call myself a skater. I skate sometimes. I don't really do tricks anymore, but I use it as transportation sometimes. Am I excited about it? Yeah. I mean, the other part of it too is that, they basically admitted that they haven't even started the game yet. So it's a long ways away. I am surprised that they closed their press conference with this. I kind of get it because it was driven by EA's community, but the fact that EA didn't want to publish a new game in the series until fans freaked out about it kind of shows you that they're not all that committed to it. I don't know. It just seemed weird.
Did you also read the article, which the director said that it will be, not exact words, but it's going to be back to the old type of skate games and early in the series, but it's going to be bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty much the only thing they really said about it. They're like, it'll be like the old Skate, but bigger, which I think we all probably could have guessed, honestly.
Well, it did go through progression throughout its time. Like the camera change is very dramatic between Skate 1 and Skate 3.
Yeah. I'm not saying that they didn't do anything to the game. But
no, sure.
I just think we assume that the next game in any franchise is always going to be bigger than the one that comes before, or otherwise you're probably not doing a good job.
Right. I think the bigger news is that it's going backwards in regards to what the original was like, because I think that's what was the most appealing part about that one compared to Tony Hawk. Yep.
It's what made it different from Tony Hawk, for sure. So anyway, that was EA's E3 2020 press conference. Even by EA standards, which are pretty low, I would say that was bad. I didn't
not tops.
I didn't come away from that excited about anything but Squadrons.
Yeah, if Squadrons hadn't been there, what a bust.
What a bust it would have been. So my letter grade for this is D+.
Yeah,
what about you, Matt?
I'd say D+. If Squadrons hadn't been there, I'd say F.
Yeah. What about you, Mitch?
I'll give it a C-. I liked a couple of the indie games, but besides that, I'm pretty much with you guys. It was a little lackluster.
Yep. There's always next year. I feel like I've been saying that about EA for literally 24 years.
Yep.
Hilarious.